The ancient Ford F-150 wheezed into the driveway like it was taking its last breath. 3 days of fishing in the mountains should have cleared my head, but all I could think about was getting home to Emily, maybe surprising her with dinner, maybe just holding her without the weight of our recent arguments hanging between us. I'm Tom Mitchell, 45 years old, and I fix computers for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I also coach boxing at Murphy's gym downtown, keeps me sane and gives me an outlet for the frustration that comes with being married to someone who makes 3 times what I do. Emily works at Pinnacle Marketing, one of those glass tower companies where everyone wears suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She's a senior account executive, drives an Audi, and lately she's been treating me like I'm part of the furniture. The house was too quiet when I walked in. Usually Emily would be watching some reality show, or on a conference call, or doing something that involved noise. Instead, there was just this heavy silence, broken only by the hum of the air conditioner. I set my tackle box down in the hallway and noticed something that made my stomach clench. There was an unfamiliar cologne in the air, expensive, the kind that comes in bottles shaped like chess pieces. Emily's purse was on the kitchen counter, next to a bottle of wine I'd never seen before. Then I heard it. A soft laugh from upstairs. Emily's laugh, but different somehow, intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my heart hammering against my ribs. The bedroom door was slightly open, and through the crack I could see movement. Shadows dancing on the wall in a rhythm I recognized but wished I didn't. I pushed the door open. Emily was in bed with a man I recognized from her company Christmas parties. Simon Kellerman, her boss. Mid-50s, silver hair, the kind of guy who probably had his shirts custom-made and his shoes polished by someone else. For a moment, nobody moved. It was like we were all frozen in some twisted photograph. Then everything exploded into motion. Emily grabbed for the sheet, her face cycling through shock, fear, and something that looked almost like annoyance. Simon scrambled for his clothes, his face red, muttering something about how this wasn't what it looked like, which was probably the stupidest thing anyone had ever said in the history of stupid things. "What the hell is this?" I heard myself shouting, my voice cracking like I was 16 again. Simon was pulling on his pants, hopping on one foot like some kind of demented flamingo. "Tom, listen, we can explain." "Explain what? Explain how you're screwing my wife in my bed?" "It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think." Simon finished getting dressed with the speed of a man who'd clearly done this before. He pushed past me, avoiding eye contact, already halfway down the stairs before I could grab him. I heard the front door slam, then the sound of his Mercedes starting up in the driveway. The silence that followed was worse than the shouting. Emily sat on the edge of the bed, pulling on a robe, and she looked at me with this strange expression. Not shame, not regret, something closer to irritation. "Why are you so upset?" she said, and I swear there was almost a smile on her lips. "It was just one night with my boss. I had needs, Tom. I had to release some pressure. You're acting like it's the end of the world." I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. This was the woman I'd been married to for 18 years. The woman I'd worked 2 jobs to put through business school. The woman who used to leave little notes in my lunchbox. "Just one night?" I repeated. "Don't be so dramatic. It doesn't mean anything. It's just physical." Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger, that would come later. This was something else. Clarity, maybe. Or the moment when you realize that the person you thought you knew never existed at all. I wiped my hands on my jeans and looked her straight in the eye. "Oh, yeah," I said quietly. "Then I'll spend one night with his wife. I'm sure he won't mind, right? Since it's just one night." Emily's smirk faltered for just a second. "Don't be ridiculous." "Why is it ridiculous? You just said it doesn't mean anything." I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her sitting there with her mouth open. I had some research to do. The next morning, Emily acted like nothing had happened. She came downstairs in her power suit, poured herself coffee, and kissed my cheek like we were still playing house. "I'm working late tonight," she said, checking her phone. "Don't wait up." I watched her drive away in her Audi and felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was getting crowded out by something else, something that felt a lot like determination. I'd met Simon's wife exactly once, at last year's company Christmas party. Victoria Kellerman was one of those women who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. Blonde, polished, the kind of person who probably had opinions about thread counts and wine pairings. She ran her own interior design business and drove a white BMW that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. It took me about 20 minutes on Google to find everything I needed to know about Victoria Kellerman. Her business website had photos of her standing in perfectly decorated rooms, smiling that professional smile that said she was successful and knew it. Her Facebook page was public, rookie mistake, and full of photos from charity events and wine tastings. But the interesting stuff was in the comments. Victoria Kellerman had friends, lots of them, and they loved to gossip. Scrolling through the comments on her posts was like reading a soap opera script. "How's Simon handling the new promotion pressure?" one friend had asked last month. "You know how men get when work gets stressful," Victoria had replied. "He's been working such long hours lately." Working long hours. Right. I found her business address easily enough. Kellerman Interiors was located in the fancy part of downtown, the kind of neighborhood where they charged $5 for coffee and called it artisanal. I drove past the building twice before I worked up the nerve to park. This was insane. I was a 45-year-old IT guy who coached boxing on weekends. I wasn't the kind of person who tracked down other people's wives to get revenge on cheating spouses. But then I remembered Emily's smirk, the way she dismissed 18 years of marriage like it was a minor inconvenience, and I got out of the truck. The lobby of Victoria's building was all marble and glass, the kind of place where my work boots squeaked on the polished floors. The directory said Kellerman Interiors was on the 3rd floor. I took the elevator up, my heart pounding like I was heading into a boxing match. The hallway was lined with frosted glass doors, each one marked with a business name in elegant script. Kellerman Interiors was at the end of the hall. I stood outside the door for a full minute, trying to figure out what I was going to say. "Hi, I'm Tom Mitchell, and your husband is screwing my wife," seemed a little direct. I was still trying to come up with a better opening line when the door opened. Victoria Kellerman was even more intimidating in person. She was wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than my mortgage payment, and she looked at me with the kind of polite confusion reserved for people who were clearly lost. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Mrs. Kellerman? I'm Tom Mitchell. I think we need to talk about your husband." Her expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. "I'm sorry. Do I know you?" "We met at your husband's Christmas party last year. I'm married to Emily Mitchell. She works with Simon." "Oh." Victoria's professional smile slipped just a little. "Of course. Emily from accounting." "Marketing, actually. Senior account executive." "Right. Marketing." She stepped back from the door. "Would you like to come in?" Her office looked like something from a design magazine. Everything was white and gold and perfectly arranged. She gestured to a chair across from her desk, and I sat down, suddenly very aware of my faded jeans and work shirt. "What did you want to discuss about Simon?" she asked, settling behind her desk like she was preparing for battle. I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Kellerman, I came home from a fishing trip yesterday and found your husband in bed with my wife." Victoria's face went completely blank. For a moment, I thought she hadn't heard me. Then she reached for a crystal paperweight on her desk and turned it over in her hands. "I see," she said quietly. "Emily told me it was just one night, that it didn't mean anything. She seemed to think I was overreacting." Victoria set the paperweight down with a soft click. "And what do you think, Mr. Mitchell?" "I think your husband has been working a lot of late nights lately." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the paperweight like it held answers to questions she'd been afraid to ask. "How long do you think it's been going on?" she asked finally. "I don't know, but I intend to find out." Victoria looked up at me, and for the first time since I'd walked into her office, her professional mask slipped completely. Underneath was a woman who looked tired and hurt and angry. "What do you want from me, Mr. Mitchell?" "I want to know if you're interested in getting even." Victoria poured herself a glass of wine from a bottle she kept in a cabinet behind her desk. It was barely noon, but I didn't judge her. If someone had just told me my spouse was cheating, I'd probably want a drink too. "Tell me exactly what you saw," she said. I gave her the whole story, from walking into the house to Emily's casual dismissal of 18 years of marriage. Victoria listened without interrupting, her face getting paler with each detail. "The bastard told me he was at a client dinner," she said when I finished. "He even showed me the reservation confirmation." "Fake?" "Must have been. Or maybe he made a real reservation and just never showed up." She took another sip of wine. "How long have you been married, Mr. Mitchell?" 18 years. "You?" 22. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. 22 years of building a life with someone who apparently thinks I'm too stupid to notice when he's screwing around. "You suspected?" "I suspected something. The late nights, the new cologne, the way he started going to the gym religiously after 20 years of calling exercise a waste of time." She set her wine glass down. "But suspecting and knowing are two different things." I leaned forward in my chair. "So what do we do about it?" Victoria studied me for a moment. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Mitchell? I'm proposing that we give them a taste of their own medicine. You want us to have an affair? The way she said it made it sound ridiculous, and maybe it was. I was a middle-aged IT guy with calloused hands and a truck that needed a new transmission. She was a successful businesswoman who probably spent more on shoes than I made in a month. I want us to make them think we're having an affair, I said. I want them to feel what we felt when we found out. Victoria picked up the crystal paperweight again, turning it over in her hands. That's quite a scheme, Mr. Mitchell. Call me Tom. Tom. She set the paperweight down. What makes you think this would work? Because they're both arrogant enough to think they're the only ones capable of deception, and because they both have something to lose if word gets out about what they're doing. Simon's up for a promotion, Victoria said slowly. Regional director. The company has strict policies about relationships between supervisors and subordinates. And Emily's been bragging about this big client presentation she's working on. Something about landing the Henderson Group account? Victoria nodded. That's a $20 million account. It would make her career. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us thinking about the implications. This is crazy, Victoria said finally. Probably. It could backfire spectacularly. Probably. We could both end up looking like fools. We already look like fools. Our spouses are cheating on us, and we're the last to know. Victoria finished her wine and set the glass down with decision. What did you have in mind? The plan we came up with was simple, which was probably why it had a chance of working. Victoria and I would start spending time together in public places where we were likely to be seen by people who knew Simon and Emily. We'd let the gossip mill do the rest. The key, Victoria said, is to make it look real without actually doing anything that crosses the line. Agreed. This is about revenge, not about starting something new. We shook hands on it, and I left her office feeling like I'd just enlisted in a war I wasn't sure I could win. The first phase of our plan went into effect that same evening. I drove to Emily's office building and parked across the street, waiting for her to come out. At 6:30, she emerged from the elevator with Simon. They walked to the parking garage together, close enough that their shoulders brushed. I followed them to a restaurant called Romano's, an upscale Italian place where the cheapest entree cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week. They sat at a corner table, leaning toward each other like lovers, completely oblivious to the world around them. I took photos with my phone, not because I needed proof, I'd seen enough proof the night before, but because Victoria and I might need ammunition later. Emily came home at 11:30, smelling like wine and Simon's cologne. How was your late night at the office? I asked. Exhausting, she said without looking at me. I'm going to bed. The next morning, I called in sick to work and met Victoria for lunch at a cafe downtown. We chose a table by the window where anyone walking by could see us. Victoria had changed out of her business attire into jeans and a sweater that made her look younger and more approachable. This feels weird, she said, stirring her coffee. Good weird or bad weird? I'm not sure yet. She looked out the window. I keep expecting Simon to walk by and catch us. Would that be a bad thing? I don't know. Part of me wants him to see us. Part of me is terrified of what happens if he does. We spent an hour talking, and it wasn't as awkward as I'd expected. Victoria was funny in a dry, sarcastic way that reminded me of the old Emily Ham, before the promotions and the fancy car and the gradual transformation into someone I didn't recognize. Can I ask you something? Victoria said as we were getting ready to leave. Sure. What was Emily like when you first met her? I thought about it. Different. She was working as a receptionist at a law firm, going to business school at night. She was ambitious, but she was also, warmer, I guess. She used to leave notes in my lunchbox. Simon used to bring me flowers every Friday, Victoria said. Not expensive flowers, just whatever he could pick up at the grocery store. But he never forgot. 20 years of Friday flowers. When did he stop? About 6 months ago. 6 months. Right around the time Emily started working late and coming home smelling like expensive cologne. What about you? I asked. What was Simon like? Attentive, thoughtful. He used to plan these elaborate surprise dates, picnics in the park, midnight movies, weekend trips to bed and breakfasts. She smiled sadly. I thought we were happy. Maybe we were happy. Maybe they just decided they wanted something different. Or maybe we were just convenient until something better came along. We walked out of the cafe together, and Victoria surprised me by taking my arm as we headed to the parking meter. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple. Phase 1 complete, she said quietly. Think anyone saw us? Oh, someone definitely saw us. She nodded toward a woman across the street who was staring at us with undisguised interest. That's Margaret Chen. She works at the bank where Simon and I have our accounts. She also happens to be the biggest gossip in town. Margaret Chen was indeed watching us with the intensity of a wildlife photographer who just spotted a rare species. When she saw us looking back, she quickly turned and walked away, but not before pulling out her phone. "How long do you think it'll take for word to get back to Simon?" I asked. "Knowing Margaret, about an hour." We were wrong. It took 37 minutes. My phone rang while I was driving home from lunch with Victoria. Emily's name flashed on the screen, and I almost didn't answer it, but curiosity won out. "Tom?" Her voice was sharp, angry. "Where are you?" "Running errands. Why?" "I just got a very interesting phone call from Margaret Chen." I pulled into a parking lot and put the truck in park. "Margaret Chen? I don't think I know her." "She works at First National Bank. She says she saw you having lunch with Victoria Kellerman." "Victoria Kellerman," I repeated, like I was trying to place the name. "Simon's wife?" "You know damn well who she is. What were you doing having lunch with her?" I could hear the panic in Emily's voice, and it gave me a savage satisfaction. We ran into each other at the cafe. She seemed upset about something, so I bought her lunch. Is that a problem? "Of course it's a problem. You can't just—" She stopped herself, probably realizing that she was about to accuse me of something she'd been doing for months. "I can't just what, Emily?" Silence on the other end of the line. "I can't just have lunch with someone? I can't just be friendly to a woman who's obviously going through a rough time?" "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" More silence. "Look," I said, "if you're worried about me developing feelings for Victoria Kellerman, don't be. I'm a married man. I take my vows seriously." The line went dead. I sat in the parking lot for a few minutes, savoring the moment. For the first time in months, I'd managed to rattle Emily's cage instead of the other way around. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Simon just called. He wants to have dinner tonight to discuss our marriage. Mission accomplished." I texted back, "Emily's freaking out too." "Phase 2? "Phase 2, she confirmed. Phase 2 involved escalation. Over the next week, Victoria and I had lunch 3 more times, always in public, always where we were likely to be seen. We went to a bookstore together, browsed the fiction section, and had an animated conversation about mystery novels. We met for coffee at a cafe near her office and spent an hour laughing about something I'd said about my disastrous attempts at home improvement. To anyone watching, we looked like 2 people who were falling for each other. The truth was more complicated. Victoria was easy to talk to, and she had a sense of humor that I'd forgotten existed in married women. But we both knew what we were doing and why. This wasn't about romance. This was about revenge. "I feel like I'm in high school again," Victoria said during one of our coffee dates. "All this sneaking around and pretending. At least in high school, the stakes were lower." "Were they? I remember thinking that everything in high school was life or death." "Fair point." I stirred my coffee. "How are things at home?" "Tense. Simon keeps asking me about my day, wanting to know where I've been, who I've seen. Yesterday, he offered to take me to dinner at Romano's." "The same place he took Emily?" "The very same. I told him I was too busy." "And how did he take that?" "About as well as you'd expect. He accused me of being distant and secretive." She laughed bitterly. The irony was lost on him. I was dealing with my own version of the same thing at home. Emily had suddenly become the attentive wife again, asking about my day, offering to cook dinner, suggesting we watch movies together. It was like she'd remembered she was married and was trying to make up for lost time. "It's working," I told Victoria. "They're both scared." "Good," she said. "They should be." But even as I said it, I wondered if we were playing a dangerous game. Emily and Simon had the advantage of actually being involved with each other. Victoria and I were just pretending. What happened when pretending wasn't enough anymore? The answer came sooner than I expected. I was at Murphy's gym, working with one of my boxing students, when Emily showed up. She'd never set foot in the gym before, claiming it was too rough and smelled like sweat. But there she was, wearing yoga pants and a tank top that showed off the figure she'd been working on at her expensive health club. "Hey, honey," she said, loud enough for everyone in the gym to hear. "I thought I'd surprise you." Murphy, the gym's owner, looked at me with raised eyebrows. In the 3 years I'd been coaching there, Emily had never shown any interest in my work. "This is a surprise," I said. Emily wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed me, a long theatrical kiss that had nothing to do with affection and everything to do with marking territory. "I was thinking we could grab dinner after you're done here," she said. "Maybe go to that new place downtown, the one with the wine bar." The new place downtown was directly across the street from Victoria's office building. "Sure," I said. "Let me just finish up with Danny here." Emily spent the next 20 minutes watching me work with my student, asking questions about boxing, pretending to be fascinated by a sport she'd previously dismissed as barbaric. It was a performance worthy of an Oscar. We went to dinner, and Emily was the perfect wife. She asked about my day, laughed at my jokes, reached across the table to touch my hand. But her eyes kept drifting to the window, scanning the street outside. "Looking for someone?" I asked. "Just people watching," she said. "You know how I love to people watch." Emily had never shown any interest in people watching in her life. We were halfway through our entrees when Victoria walked by outside, heading toward the parking garage. She was alone, carrying a briefcase, looking like she was heading home after a long day at work. Emily's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Isn't that Simon's wife?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Where?" "Right there. The blonde woman in the blue dress." I looked out the window. "Oh, yeah, Victoria. She seems nice." "You're on a first-name basis with her now?" "We've had lunch a few times. I told you that." Emily set down her fork. "A few times? I thought it was just once." "Did I say once? I meant a few times. She's going through a rough patch with Simon. Sometimes she needs someone to talk to." "What kind of rough patch?" I shrugged. "Marriage stuff. You know how it is." Emily's jaw tightened. "No, I don't know how it is." "What kind of marriage stuff?" "She thinks Simon might be cheating on her." The color drained from Emily's face. "Cheating? Why would she think that?" "Late nights at the office, new cologne, coming home smelling like someone else's perfume." I took a sip of my wine. The usual signs. Emily stared at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. "Of course, I told her she was probably imagining things," I continued. "Simon seems like a stand-up guy, the kind of man who takes his marriage vows seriously." "Right," Emily said weakly. "A stand-up guy." We finished dinner in relative silence, Emily picking at her food while I made small talk about work and the weather. When we got home, she disappeared into the bathroom for a long shower, and I heard her on the phone with someone, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. I didn't need to guess who she was calling. The next morning, Victoria texted me. "Simon came home last night and suggested we go to marriage counseling. Says he's been neglecting me and wants to work on our relationship. Your wife must have warned him." I texted back, "Emily's in full panic mode too. I think it's time for phase 3. "What's phase 3? I thought about it for a moment, then typed, "We let them catch us." My phone rang immediately. "Are you insane?" Victoria's voice was sharp with panic. "Not catch us doing anything," I said quickly. "Just catch us together, somewhere private, somewhere that looks compromising." "Tom, I don't think—" "They're getting suspicious, but they're not sure what to believe. We need to give them something concrete to worry about." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "What did you have in mind?" "Your office. After hours. We'll make sure one of them sees us going in together." "And then what?" "And then we wait. Let their imaginations fill in the blanks." Another long pause. "This is getting complicated." "It was always going to get complicated. The question is whether we want to be the ones controlling the complications or the ones reacting to them." "Fine," she said finally. "But if this backfires, I'm blaming you." "Fair enough." We arranged to meet at her office building that evening at 7 o'clock. I spent the day working, trying to act normal, while Emily fluttered around the house like a nervous bird. She kept checking her phone, making excuses to run errands, and asking me about my plans for the evening. "I'm meeting a client," I told her. "Computer problem that can't wait until tomorrow." "Which client?" "New one, downtown office building." Emily's eyes sharpened. "Which building?" "The glass tower on 5th Street. Why?" "Just curious." The glass tower on 5th Street was where Victoria's office was located. At 6:30, I kissed Emily goodbye and headed downtown. I parked in the building's garage and took the elevator to the 3rd floor, where Victoria was waiting for me in the hallway. "I can't believe we're doing this," she said. "Having second thoughts?" "Third and fourth thoughts. But I'm tired of being the victim in this story." We went into her office and turned on the lights. Victoria poured herself a glass of wine from the bottle she kept in her cabinet, and I sat down in the chair across from her desk. "Now what?" she asked. "Now we wait." We didn't have to wait long. At 7:15, Victoria's phone buzzed with a text message. She looked at it and smiled grimly. "Simon's working late tonight. Says he might not be home until after midnight." "Let me guess. He's meeting with an important client." "A client who needs immediate attention?" My phone buzzed a minute later. Emily was also working late, dealing with an urgent project that couldn't wait until morning. "They're both here," I said, "somewhere in this building." Victoria stood up and walked to her window, which overlooked the parking garage. Simon's car is on the second level. I can see it from here. I joined her at the window. Sure enough, there was Simon's silver Mercedes parked next to Emily's Audi. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Victoria said. Maybe it's time we stopped hiding too. Victoria looked at me, and for a moment I thought she was going to kiss me. The moment stretched between us, full of possibility and danger. Then she stepped back. We should go, she said. Before we do something we'll regret. You're right. But as we headed for the door, Victoria stopped and turned back to me. Tom? Thank you for helping me see the truth about my marriage. I've been living in denial for months. Thank you for helping me figure out what to do about mine. We took the elevator down together, and as the doors opened in the lobby, we came face to face with Simon and Emily. They were standing by the building directory, looking guilty and panicked and completely busted. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Simon cleared his throat. Victoria, I was looking for you. In the lobby? Victoria's voice was ice cold. I wanted to surprise you. Take you to dinner. Emily was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Tom? What are you doing here? I was consulting with Victoria about a computer problem, I said. Her system's been acting up. At night? It's when she's free. The four of us stood there in the most awkward silence in the history of awkward silences. Then Victoria stepped forward and took my arm. Tom was just walking me to my car, she said. Weren't you, Tom? Absolutely. We walked past Simon and Emily, leaving them standing in the lobby like two teenagers who'd been caught sneaking out after curfew. That was perfect, Victoria whispered as we headed for the parking garage. Phase 3 complete? Phase 3 complete. Now comes the hard part. Which is? Living with the consequences. The consequences came faster than either of us expected. I woke up the next morning to find Emily sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a stack of printed emails. She looked like she hadn't slept, and her eyes were red from crying. We need to talk, she said. I poured myself coffee and sat down across from her. Okay. I know what you're doing. What am I doing? You're having an affair with Victoria Kellerman. I took a sip of my coffee. Am I? Don't play games with me, Tom. I saw you together last night. I've seen you together multiple times over the past 2 weeks. And I want it to stop. I set down my coffee cup and looked at her. Really looked at her. Emily was 43 years old, still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 20 years ago. But somewhere along the way, she'd become someone else. Someone who thought she could cheat on her husband and then demand fidelity in return? You want it to stop, I repeated. Yes. The way you stopped sleeping with Simon? Emily's face crumpled. That's different. How is it different? It just is. Because you did it first? Because you're in love with him? I'm not in love with him. Then why did you do it? Emily stared at the table, tears streaming down her face. I don't know. You don't know. It just happened. We were working late. We had some wine. One thing led to another. And you decided to keep letting one thing lead to another for the past 6 months? She looked up at me sharply. How did you know it was 6 months? Because that's when you stopped leaving notes in my lunchbox. That's when you stopped asking about my day. That's when you started treating me like I was invisible. Tom, that's when you decided I wasn't enough anymore. It's not like that. Then what is it like, Emily? Explain it to me. Make me understand how 18 years of marriage means so little to you that you can throw it away for a few nights with your boss. Emily was crying harder now, mascara running down her cheeks. I was lonely. You were lonely. You're always at the gym or working on your truck or watching sports. We never talk anymore. We never talk because every time I try to talk to you, you're on your phone or your laptop or rushing off to another meeting. My career is important to me. More important than your marriage? That's not fair, isn't it? You've been screwing Simon for 6 months, Emily. 6 months of lying to me, of coming home smelling like his cologne, of making me feel like I was going crazy for thinking something was wrong. I never meant for you to get hurt. But you knew I would be. You knew it, and you did it anyway. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. So, you decided to hurt me back? I decided to see what it felt like to be wanted by someone. Victoria Kellerman doesn't want you. She's just using you to get back at Simon. Maybe. Or maybe she sees something in me that you forgot was there. Emily stood up abruptly, knocking over her coffee cup. This is insane. You're throwing away our marriage for some revenge fantasy. I'm not the one who threw away our marriage, Emily. You did that the first time you slept with Simon. So what happens now? We get divorced? We split up everything we've built together. We destroy our family. I looked around the kitchen, at the photos on the refrigerator, at the coffee maker we'd bought for our 10th anniversary, at the table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. This had been our home, our life, and Emily had burned it down for a few nights with a man who probably didn't even love her. I don't know what happens now, I said, but I know what's not going to happen. I'm not going to pretend this didn't occur. I'm not going to smile and forgive and go back to being the husband who wasn't enough for you. Tom, please. We can work this out. We can go to counseling. Can we? Can you look me in the eye and tell me you're going to stop seeing Simon? Can you tell me you choose me over him? Emily opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. That's what I thought. I stood up and headed for the door. Where are you going? Emily called after me. To see someone who actually wants to spend time with me? I drove to Victoria's office, my hands shaking with adrenaline. The confrontation with Emily had been building for months, and now that it was over, I felt empty and exhausted and strangely relieved. Victoria was waiting for me with coffee and pastries from the bakery downstairs. You look like hell, she said. I feel like hell. Emily and I had it out this morning. Simon and I had our conversation last night. He denied everything, of course. Said you and I were just friends, that Emily and I were imagining things. Even after seeing us together? Especially after seeing us together. He's convinced that we're having an affair to make them jealous. I sat down in the chair across from her desk. Aren't we? Victoria was quiet for a moment. I don't know anymore, are we? It was a good question. Somewhere in the past 2 weeks, the line between pretending and reality had gotten blurred. Victoria and I had spent hours talking, laughing, sharing stories about our marriages and our dreams and our disappointments. We'd created an intimacy that felt real, even though it was built on a foundation of revenge. I think, I said carefully, that we're two people who got tired of being taken for granted. And now? Now I think we need to decide what we really want. Victoria poured herself coffee and sat down across from me. What do you want, Tom? I thought about it. What did I want? I wanted Emily to be the woman I'd married 20 years ago. I wanted to go back to a time when we were happy, when we talked to each other, when she looked at me like I was the most important person in her world. But that woman was gone, if she'd ever really existed at all. I want to stop feeling like a fool, I said finally. Then let's stop being fools. Victoria reached across the desk and took my hand. Her fingers were soft and warm, and for a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like to start over with someone new, someone who saw me as more than just a reliable paycheck and a warm body to share the mortgage. Victoria, I know, this is crazy. We're both married, we're both adults who should know better. But I haven't felt this alive in years. I squeezed her hand. Neither have I. We sat there for a moment, holding hands across her desk, both of us knowing we were about to cross a line we couldn't uncross. Then Victoria's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and sighed. It's Simon. Answer it. She picked up the phone. Hello, Simon. I could hear his voice through the speaker, urgent and panicked. Victoria, we need to talk. Right now. I'm coming to your office. I'm busy right now. Cancel whatever you're doing. This is important. Victoria looked at me and smiled. Actually, Simon, I don't think I will. I'm having lunch with a friend, and unlike some people, I don't cancel on my friends for work emergencies. What friend? Tom Mitchell? You remember Tom, don't you? Emily's husband? Silence on the other end of the line. Simon, are you there? I'll be right there. The line went dead. Victoria set down the phone and grinned at me. I think we're about to have some company. Both of them? Oh, definitely both of them. Simon will call Emily the second he hangs up. Are you ready for this? Victoria stood up and walked around the desk. She was wearing a black dress that hugged her curves, and her blonde hair was pulled back in a way that made her look professional and sexy at the same time. Tom? Yeah? Whatever happens next, I want you to know that these past 2 weeks have been the best I've felt in years. Me too. She leaned down and kissed me. It was soft and sweet and full of possibility, and for a moment, I forgot about Emily and Simon and the mess we were all making of our lives. Then the elevator dinged in the hallway, and we heard footsteps heading toward Victoria's office. Showtime, Victoria whispered. The door burst open without a knock. Simon stormed in, his face red with anger, followed closely by Emily, who looked like she'd been crying. What the hell is going on here? Simon demanded. Victoria and I were standing close together, her lipstick slightly smudged, my shirt wrinkled from where she'd grabbed it during our kiss. We're having lunch, Victoria said calmly. Would you like to join us? Don't play games with me, Victoria. I know what you're doing. What am I doing, Simon? You're having an affair with this man to get back at me. Get back at you for what? Simon's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He couldn't very well accuse Victoria of revenge without admitting what she was getting revenge for. Emily stepped forward. Tom, this has gone far enough. Come home. We can work this out. Can we? I asked. Are you going to stop seeing Simon? Emily glanced at Simon, then back at me. Yes. Simon? Victoria turned to her husband. Are you going to stop seeing Emily? Simon looked trapped. Victoria, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've been cheating on me with Emily for months, and now you're upset because you think I'm cheating on you with Tom. Are you? Emily asked. Are you sleeping with my husband? Victoria smiled. Why? Are you sleeping with mine? The four of us stood there in a circle, like gunfighters in an old western, waiting to see who would draw first. Finally, Simon broke. Fine. Yes. Emily and I have been seeing each other, but it's not what you think. What is it then? Victoria asked. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. Simon ran his hands through his hair. I love her. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Emily stared at Simon with shock and something that might have been horror. Simon? I love you, Emily. I want to be with you. I want us to leave our spouses and start a life together. Emily's face went white. You never said. We never talked about. I'm saying it now. Leave Tom. I'll leave Victoria. We can be together. Emily chose me over Simon, tearfully claiming she couldn't destroy our family. Simon begged Victoria to forgive him. She handed him divorce papers instead. 3 months later, I lived simply above a gym, teaching boxing and fixing computers, free, alive. Emily and I separated. She sought therapy. Simon, fired and humbled, paid alimony. Victoria thrived post-divorce. We began dating slowly, bonded by shared betrayal. Over dinner, we admitted no regrets about finding each other, messy as it was. Emily's email apologized, not just for the affair, but for years of neglect. I wished her well. I'd moved on. With Victoria, I chose partnership daily. From wreckage rose a better life. The best revenge? Living well.